back to the Meaning Of podcast. I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And this is the podcast where we talk about your favorite directors and the deeper meaning within their films. And we are still here on our new YouTube channel, First Cut.
First Cut.
Hopefully you guys are now subscribed to First Cut.
Yeah.
If you are, then you are seeing this video. Last week we did our top 10 movies of 2018. Now we're going to do another list, something that we did last year. And that is talking about the top 5 directors of 2018. Now, these are the directors that I basically said took 2018 by storm. Every year there's directors that stand out just as much as their movie does. And that's the kind of directors I want to talk about. I want to talk about directors that stand out. Basically, the way I quantify this is box office success, critical success, and conversation. Basically, who's in the conversation, who's starting conversations, who's picking up steam as far as directors-wise in 2018, who did that the most. Last year, we did an episode, and we talked about people like Jordan Peele, Greta Gerwig, Patty Jenkins. Those are some examples of directors that really took 2017 and made it their own. We're going to do that once again, and we're going to do that with 2018 RB3. Do you have any thoughts on directors that took this year by storm? RB3?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a small list I think that we could really say are like the truly stand out. I feel like when we're talking about this age of like comic book movies, IPs, adapted stuff, like the director's vision rarely pops out into like full form and a lot of blockbuster sense. So a lot of times we got to plot that. And I also want to apply, I mean, we talk a little bit about, how the box office influence, but I feel like some directors didn't have the box office influence because they didn't have necessarily the opportunity to have the big box office too. So I'm probably, for me, I'm thinking of it as much about impact, but also about almost the same way that, not the same way that, because Oscars is like all political, but I'm also about like what is the best, who made the biggest name, who made the biggest splash for themselves.
Yeah.
With a lot of times it's newcomers, but also a lot of times it's the veteran director who's coming back after some time of not having the best performing films or whatever. So it could be a mixture of all of that too. So.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, definitely directors that, like you said, had a vision and completed their vision and saw their vision on screen. So many times nowadays we see studio movies that feel like studio movies, that feel like 20 people had a hand in this and 20 people made this movie. We want to pick directors that had a clear vision and had that vision accomplished all the way through. Let's get into it, man. I guess I'll start things out. I'm going to start. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of directors that I did not include on this list. I don't want to do honorable mentions just because I feel like that's too much. But unfortunately, there's going to be a few directors that I exclude that almost made my list. So sorry to those people. I really feel like you did make an impact in 2018, but I want to feel the biggest impact. And that's why I chose these directors that I have right here. Starting with number 5. And number 5, RB3, I have 2 directors. Count them. 1, 2.
Is the Russo
and
brothers?
They happen to be brothers.
Yeah, I knew it.
At number 5, I got the Russo brothers with Avengers Infinity War. You know what's funny, man? This is number 5, which means I was they were not going to be on my list, man.
Was number 3.
Yeah, I was moving things up and down. I was taking directors off. I was putting them on. I was thinking about things. I was picking other indie directors a little bit more that made smaller movies. But I keep coming back to the Russo brothers. And you know why? Because I feel like they've done other movies in the past that people might have enjoyed more. They did Captain America, Winter Soldier. They did Civil War. But I really feel like this is the time where they're standing out in this movie the most. Where in Captain America, Winter Soldier, and in Civil War, Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, the story, other elements of that movie, of those movies, kind of stood out the most. I feel like the Russo brothers are finally a household name now with Avengers Infinity War and what they created with this new balance of all these heroes with Thanos, with Thor, with all these different storylines that, like I said last week, worked all together really, really well in a cohesive story. And the fact that they were able to balance, how many is it, 18, 19 Marvel movies and that they were able to take all these stories and take all these characters from all these different creative directors. It's basically taking paintings from all these different artists and putting them all together and making a cohesive story and making a cohesive understanding of these characters is so difficult to do. And the fact that they were able to do that by uniting different visions and putting it all into one vision, to me, is one of the most challenging, one of the most breakthrough accomplishments of the year. And at the end of the day, it made a freaking $2 billion worldwide. And that is because it had an impact as far as audiences goes. Biggest opening of all time, one of the biggest all-time movies already worldwide. The Russo brothers were able to accomplish what many consider to be the impossible, which is putting all these movies together. And I think they accomplished that 100% successfully.
That's cool, man. I mean, Russo's.
Come on, man. Stop being a hater. You got to get off that hate train, bro.
I'm not hating. We just did.
You got to choo-choo off that hate train, bro.
This is my number 3 superhero movie of the year.
It's my number 3 movie of the year.
Well, yeah. I mean, I personally, I see all of that. Like, I completely agree. They did a good job putting.
I mean, dude, the fact that it's from, like I said, it's all these different characters from all these different directors and all these different stories, man. That's hard.
Yeah,
that's hard.
Well, you know that to me, I mean, it's a plus, but I could also see it as being a downside too, a little bit too. Like, not a downside, but like in terms of like, you know, you kind of have to. I don't know. It's a little bit of like they have to reduce a little bit of what they're saying to adhere to what the rest of the universe has to adhere to, which is fine. You know, that's the purpose of the movie.
That's an art form within itself, man.
It is.
To be able to balance all that?
Yeah,
that's hard.
It's true. Yeah. I personally wouldn't, I wouldn't consider that like, you know.
You don't think they had a breakout year? 2018?
For me, I put 2016 as the breakout year for Civil War, but maybe it's just because I like Civil War more.
Yeah.
But I also think that, you know, I mean, you're right, though. For making that kind of big accomplishment for the Avengers films is amazing. It's tough because you almost want to put Kevin Feige in that conversation too, though. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but he's not a director.
Yeah, but you know, he's producing. Sure. And he collected. He's the one who brought the Russo brothers in to do Infinity War and have them put all of this entire world together, this entire world of a movie. So yeah, I mean, much respect to them. I mean, I'm still pending for Endgame. Maybe after that, I declare 2019 to be the year of the Russos. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think that they have worked hard to achieve something that hadn't really been achieved before.
I mean, the fact that people were doubting this movie so much before it was coming out, man. Yeah. They were like, how are they going to put the Guardians with Captain America? How are they going to do this with that? And how are they going to balance serious subject matter with having the MCU tone? And they did all of it.
But do you think that's like all that? Do you think that's watering down their voice though? Do you think like this since they have to? Since when it's a Guardians movie, it has to be a James Gunn thing. When it's a Black Panther, it has to be a little bit of a Coogler thing. When it's Thor, it has to be a little bit of a Taika Waititi thing. You know, like instead of it just being like the Russo brothers. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but I feel like they were able to bring their own to it. And I don't know if you would agree with me, but they had their own moments with each character in their own movie. Not Thor's movie, not Guardians movie, but their own movie. Avengers Infinity War has some of the best Guardians moments. Avengers Infinity War has some of the best Iron Man moments. Avengers Infinity War has some of the best Thor moments. And it's not a Thor movie. It's not a Guardians movie. And it has some of the best moments. To me, that's Russo's taking the character and having fun with the character, man. It's the idea of a fan-made cohesive season finale movie. And that's what Infinity War is altogether. It's a Infinity War, all cohesive season finale movie. And that's so difficult to do because it really is two fanboys making this movie and making it great and making it fun and making it enjoyable for a massive, massive audience. And that's hard to do. It's really hard. Yeah. I mean, especially following something like a Justice League. Like, look at that. And obviously, that's a whole mess within itself, but you could be like, oh, Justice League didn't. No, it didn't. It really did. It had no vision. It had no fun. It had no purpose, and it didn't. It wasn't able to balance characters in the correct manner. It wasn't able to do that at all. So it's hard to do, man. It's much tougher.
Yeah, well, it's great that you start off with Marvel MCU directors. Because I'm starting my top 5 off with another MCU director of this year, and it's not Peyton Reed, but Mr. Ryan Coogler. I'd put as
at number 5.
Well,
damn.
Was this like a specific order that you want to do?
I did. I don't know about you. Did you?
I just have like a five. Okay. You know what I mean? I have like 5.
Man, I made an order to this.
I want to celebrate.
The order goes out
equally.
The window. No,
the order. Yeah, we could do. I just have to think of an order for like 2 seconds. But I particularly look at Ryan Coogler with Black Panther and the accomplishment that movie had as the pinnacle of the MCU for 2018, at least for me. Like, and even though internationally, Infinity War made $2 billion. Black Panther is still the highest grossing Marvel movie in the United States, the biggest comic book movie in the United States, and the second biggest, I think the third biggest movie of all time domestically.
That's crazy.
So
that's when you know you did something.
Yeah. It had a real cultural touchstone. It touched the Black community, the comic book community, mass audiences in general.
The critical community. The Academy, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, dude, yeah. Let's just say we'll get to him later in my list.
Yeah. I even distinctly remember watching Black Panther at the premiere.
Yeah.
And when of course at every premiere they do a thing where all the cast and crew comes out and everybody claps and stuff. When Coogler came out, man, I'm telling you, this ginormous, massive. What's theater? It's not the El Capitan. It was the
Egyptian.
Not the Egyptian. It's Chinese? The one Chinese. Is that the Chinese? Massive Chinese theater. Everybody in the theater stood up and gave this dude a standing O for like 5 minutes, bro. 5 minutes. This dude made 2 movies before this point, Fruitvale Station and Creed. And see, it's also tough because you think, oh, maybe Creed, maybe 2015, maybe that's the year we call it the year of Ryan Coogler. But I feel like Black Panther really solidified, for one, solidified the talent level. For 2, solidified the box office prosperity that this guy has. For 3, just the overall global impact that this movie had from a race perspective, from a political perspective, and from a general breaking comic books into the not into the mainstream, but the critical, the high regards. Is really breaking a lot of ceilings, and for that, I have to award Ryan Coogler the highest of regards.
100%, man.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep going on that train. Choo-choo, all the way down that train, because I'm going back to another comic book movie that came out this year. And it came out towards the end of this year. Once again, every single person on my list is up and down, off, on. This list is very difficult. It was hard to make because I was picking a lot of other directors as well that I wanted to include. But as much as I tried to take this person off the list, he kept getting back on because I feel like this guy reinvigorated something that was on the brink of death, to be honest, man. And especially with the movie that I just mentioned before, Justice League, and that's the DC universe. It's the director of Aquaman himself, James Wan. James Wan made a true spectacle masterpiece with Aquaman. It is a true spectacle, CG, crazy, ridiculous, over-the-top, insane movie. And that is what Aquaman was. It is a 2.5-hour ride of craziness, of visual masterpiece that it is. It is ridiculous. It is in your face. It is over the top. It's a blast. It's so much fun. The time flew by for me, and on top of that, it really did reinvigorate the DCEU. It brought it back from the brink of death, man. It pulled the Lazarus effect on the DC universe because this was something that, besides Wonder Woman, this thing was going off the shit, man. This year we were losing Henry Cavill as Superman. We were losing Ben Affleck as Batman. Yeah. We were losing the future movies that were in store. Everything seemed pretty dire when it came to these movies. And while it was being made, the DCU was like dead in the water. When James Wan was making this movie, when he was actually in production, everyone was talking about like DCU being done for. and Aquaman coming in at the worst time ever because no one cares about the DCEU anymore. No. And here it comes out and it breaks all these boundaries. It breaks all these characters. It introduces new stories for people to enjoy, and it makes a ton of money globally as well, man. This movie has done money. I believe it's at 945 globally right now, which is almost $1 billion. That's huge, man. Yeah. And the fact that it came out a couple weeks ago too.
China loves that CGI.
China loves it, man. China loves this movie. And when CGI. You make, yeah, man, that CGI spectacle. Mm-hmm. It is, I believe, one of the most fun movies of the year, one of the biggest spectacle movies of the year. And if it wasn't for Avengers Infinity War, I told my brother, if it wasn't for Avengers Infinity War, this would be the CG spectacle movie, because Avengers Infinity War was basically, like we talked about before, a giant CG spectacle movie. And this movie did it as well, and it did it almost just as well as Infinity War, in my opinion. And for that, man, James Wan should be given so much credit just for bringing DC's heart back to life. Just for pulling a Neo and freaking pumping that heart and just putting your hand in there and just being like, come back.
Yeah.
Like, just for that itself, James Wan deserves to be on anyone's list.
Yeah, no, that's definitely noteworthy. Mm-hmm. I even when we we're thinking about this list, I thought about putting James Wan there just for that, just for bringing that to life.
Yeah, man.
Because man, there's some dark times there.
It was dark times,
by the way,
man.
I still miss Zack Snyder. Still miss him a little bit. But
you're talking to a Zack Snyder fan.
But I like if we're gonna keep giving people like James Wan and Patty Jenkins these opportunities, because they're obviously having a lot of fun with these properties.
Yeah,
I think Ava DuVernay's doing a DC film as well, right? The Eternals.
That's right.
Yeah, so let's see how that rolls too.
Yeah,
maybe she'll have a comeback after A Wrinkle in Time.
And what's great too is that the action set pieces in this movie is some of the best I've seen.
That's the most notable thing for me.
The action set pieces are so. I mean, the freaking Italy fight scene was like blowing my mind. The camera was going back and forth between Mira and Aquaman, and it was swinging back and forth through these rooftops of Italy. I was like, oh my god. Why aren't more people freaking out in the theater right now? Because I was freaking out. I was like, oh, shit. And everyone next to me was kind of chill. And I was like, yo, this camera is like showing you two perspectives of two fight scenes at the same time. That within itself is to give James Wan so much credit, man. Yeah. I mean, this is the director of Fast and Furious 7, which is another franchise movie.
Yeah.
That is also crazy.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous how well shot the action scenes are.
Yeah.
And this movie does action on a level of 10. It's always at 10. Like the speakers are blasting in your face at 10, and it's so cool.
100%.
Yeah. Who's your number 4, man?
My number 4, and I might need you a little help, a little bit of your help pronouncing the homie's name, but the brother who did Hereditary.
Ari Aster?
Ari Aster. That's how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Ari Aster is my number 4 pick. For Hereditary, of course.
That was my number 1 movie of the year.
Yeah, your number 1 movie was my number 10.
And it was all the Wingers' number 1s, too.
Yeah, it's all exactly. So for me, I put this as my number 4 pick because this is one of the biggest A24 movies they've ever done. This movie has been remarkably successful in terms of... Excuse me. This movie has been remarkably successful in establishing... that directorial style that this guy has, the talent that he possesses, and also for a first-time feature being this celebrated and being this honestly great. I mean, for anybody making a first feature, that's always tough. That's always an entire other hill that has to be climbed over. Besides making a good first feature, you know, like that's why seeing a good first feature is incredibly difficult. And that's why we have to celebrate it so much. And you know, Tarantino obviously had a great first feature. There's very few directors whose very first film was great, but this guy, he had it. So that's definitely worth the applause. And the cultural impact that I feel like Hereditary had is notwithstanding, because I feel like the Hereditary kind of, I shouldn't say it spawned a conversation, but it definitely highlighted, psychological horror, for a lot of people in this year. And then we saw The Haunting of Hill House also come out in 2018, which also I haven't seen. It
had Hereditary vibes,
but it had a lot of a lot of people make those comparisons. They're probably filming relatively close to the same time, so I don't want to say one took direct influence from the other. But Hereditary helped elevate. I feel like
the
people's
horror
perception
genre.
of the horror genre, the psychological horror. of 2018. So much
Absolutely.
appreciated,
Out of the year, this was a great year. 2018 overall wasn't necessarily the best year in movies, but it was a great year for feature film debuts, man. Boots Riley, Carlos Lopez Estrada with Blind Spotting, Bo Burnham with 8th Grade, the homeboy who did Thoroughbreds. We'll talk about another first-time feature film director who's on my list. But out of all of them, I think he made the best movie. And that's tough. That's tough to say out of all those movies, because for me, Hereditary was the best out of all the feature film debuts. And yeah, man, shout out to Ari Aster.
Speaking of Bo Burnham, I was gonna put
Me too. He's on my honorable mentions.
I was gonna say Bo Burnham instead of Hereditary.
The only reason why I didn't put him in is because not a lot of people saw that movie, to be honest.
I didn't know the box office. I just figured more people talked about Hereditary than 8th Grade. But I still want to give Bo Burnham the highest of regards, because that's also for a first feature. It's incredible. Great. And obviously, he had a lot of experience with YouTube, so he knows content is content. When you do it for long enough, like, you do have an understanding of how to tell a story.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's like it would have been very easy for that movie, for 8th Grade, to feel like a YouTube movie. It would have been very easy for that movie to just be a cookie cutter, like, social media thing. But the fact that it was so personal and so rich and so visually stunning and so tonically and atmospheric and stylistic. Bo Burnham deserves the highest respects for that too.
100%, man. Yeah. So that's your number.
That's my number 4. Yeah.
Ari Aster, number 4.
Ari Aster. Yeah.
My number 3, because we're going back to me. My number 3 is.
Your number 4.
Huh?
Oh, isn't your number 3? What did you say? What was your number 4?
My number 4 was James Wan.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I'm sorry. I apologize.
So we're going back to my number 3.
Okay.
My number 3 is a director who a lot of people know, but they didn't know he directed. And he made a movie that everyone freaking talked about, like it was the best movie of the year and like it was the best horror movie of the year. I don't think that was the case. I think it was one of the best movies of the year. Sure, it wasn't in my list, but it really made an impact as a director, and that is why I put John Krasinski as my number 3 director of 2018. Because when it comes to directing movies, people are taking John Krasinski more and more seriously, to the point now where he made a box office successful movie, and he also made a actual critical success as well. He made a movie where people were not talking about the monsters, we're not talking about the acting, we're not talking about the scenes. They were talking about John Krasinski as a director. That's who they were talking about when they were talking about A Quiet Place. A Quiet Place and John Krasinski were in the same conversations back and forth. Every time you talked about that movie, you talked about him as a director. And I feel like that within itself is an amazing accomplishment. Not just that, because he's getting offered more and more roles and more director, actor, performance roles. And I feel like that's very difficult to do. That's rare in Hollywood. And the fact that you're able to do that successfully is even more rare. And the fact that he's doing that with this movie, that's a really short, kind of low-budget horror movie. But the fact, my friend said it best over the weekend, the fact that he got so many people in a movie theater to shut up and to stay shut up for a very long time is a success within itself. It is really, really well directed. That's one of the best things about A Quiet Place is the direction. It's really well directed. The story is well told. It's well paced, and the conclusion is great, man. I mean, him and Emily Blunt really did accomplish a really solid, successful horror movie, and I feel like people are taking him way more seriously than they were any other time period. Now more than ever, as a director, more than an actor.
Yeah, and that's fascinating because we saw two major examples, at least, of actors turning directors
and doing it successful.
Yeah,
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper was Star is Born, and obviously A Quiet Place with John Krasinski. What I think is not more fascinating, but I think what I take away from A Quiet Place a little more than A Star is Born. And actually, maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe is A Quiet Place really his debut? Because maybe he had two other films before.
A Quiet Place is not Krasinski's debut. Bradley Cooper's A Star is Born is
a debut. Okay, yeah. But we saw that that conversation turn into the mainstream. But you could tell John Krasinski had a little more experience in terms of the camera, not in terms of the camera, but in terms of the usage of the camera, the angles. For me, the scene where Emily Blunt is in labor, where she's giving birth, and has to remain quiet through that is one of that to me is, you clip that scene out, that is an all-time classic horror moment. That's an all-time classic horror moment. And the fact that that is coming from the dude who's also on the screen, because people have to understand, being on the screen and behind the camera at the same time, that's a tough task. Like, you have to think for yourself and for everybody else. A lot of times people just, a director has to think for everybody, and the director just has to, and the actor has to think about his performance. But he's doing both, and Bradley Cooper does a really good job at it. But for Krasinski, he does the on-screen performance great, but the eccentric horror elements that are taking place in the story are just so out there and so quirky and weird. Not quirky and weird, but so original. It's really inspired, and it feels like he's been a fan of the horror genre for a long time and really wanted to make this movie and encompass a lot of classic horror while also making something new and original. And now we see things like Bird Box come out that, again, maybe not direct influence, because I don't know if they're filming at the same time or not. But, that movie definitely, as the marketing of that movie at least, definitely plays into the angle of like the Quiet Place, and
the
definitely
quirk that it has, right?
Yeah.
It's the whole like, what if you can't hear? What if you can't make a noise? What if you can't see? What if you? Yeah, it's that little quirky angle that introduces the horror aspect of it, right?
Yeah. So much respect to John Krasinski for that one.
Yeah, I really feel like that is one of the best parts of the movie, is the fact that audiences can put themselves in the shoes of the characters, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what if you lived in a world that you can't make any noise? How would you live in that world? How would you succeed in that world? How would you make a family in that world? All those questions that Krasinski asks in this movie is really well done, because that's what the point of a horror movie is at the end of the day, is to put you in the movie and put you in the characters. Like, what would I do in this horrifying scenario? Yeah. And he does that perfectly.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Your number 3, RB3.
My number 3, my number 3 is going to a director who really, the film didn't make any, I don't think made any splashes box office wise.
Okay.
But it's a streaming service movie. It's not a streaming service movie in the traditional sense. It's an Amazon Prime movie. You're Never Really Here, director Lynn Ramsey.
Okay.
That movie, I feel like it doesn't have like the biggest
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It doesn't have the biggest box office, but I feel like, but I've seen a lot of people and on film Twitter who have been catching up on this movie recently, because they just put it on Amazon Prime recently. I feel like I've seen a lot of people who are actually catching that movie, and when they watch that movie, everybody is having the genuinely like same kind of reaction that I had when I watched it. It's like, wow, this is an incredibly impactful film. And I'm not very familiar with Lynn Ramsey's filmography, her like full filmography. I've heard of a couple of the films she's done, but this movie really opened my eyes to this incredible female director who is making this very masculine type thriller about a assassin, a hitman who's murdering child pedophilia or child. What do you call it? A pedophile? That's what the guys
trafficker.
Traffic. Yeah, they're traffickers too. Yeah, all that stuff is it bugs something that's actually really prevalent in today's age, and creates almost like a parallel to like a taxi. This is the most Taxi Driver feeling movie I've seen ever. It feels just like it has the
even
style.
more than Nightcrawler.
Even more than Nightcrawler.
Really? Because Nightcrawler had that Taxi Driver feel.
Yeah, but I feel like this one had the style and the offness of it, but it accentuated it to a different, kind of like a much more. I feel like it was almost more of a chiseled piece in terms of I don't know, maybe I'm not explaining this correctly. I feel like Nightcrawler is more of a full story, where this one has a story, but it's not like, it doesn't have, it's less about the story, but it's more about the character. It's more about a chiseled character piece study, to me at least. You're Never Really Here. And I think all around, I think the fact that this movie didn't get the same kind of box office pull, of course, it's a little bit of a result of it being from a streaming service, but it's also, it's not like really marketable or commercial, because they exclude from showing the violence. The movie's not about the violence. It's about the person. It's about the character. And I think that choice is just so strong and so powerful that I can't help but to recognize the director for that, just for making that kind of choice, you know?
Yeah.
And there are, I was mistaken last week, there are like 1 or 2 fight scenes that you actually do see in the movie, but it's not like that's the point, you know? And for a movie to have such a direct point and for a director to execute on that so faithfully, I think is a huge accomplishment.
This movie did have a theatrical release, though,
It did
right?
have a theatrical release, yeah.
It came out in
I think
May?
it might have been April. Yeah, I think it was April.
I think it was like April, yeah.
Yeah,
I remember when it came out because I wanted to see it. I just didn't get the chance to.
Yeah, it didn't play in a lot of theaters, I think. But, you know, I just want to give a shout to the streaming services, man. I mean, Amazon. I kind of... But before I kind of pooped on Amazon because, and I still kind of do, but they still follow the traditional release model of like, oh, it got to be in theaters and we got to wait 3 months before it hits the streaming, which is weird because you're a streaming platform. Can't you just put it out immediately? But I kind of poop on them for that. But for this movie, at least, like I could totally see the methodology behind it. It should have gotten more award attention. And yeah, I could do nothing but applaud them for what they're for
Lynn
that film.
Ramsey?
Lynn Ramsey, yeah.
Got
And
it.
I particularly named her because as much as this movie is Joaquin Phoenix's movie, it's also as much about her direction and her choices as well, which of course can be a downside because, like I said, it's not commercially viable.
Sure,
you can't really market a movie you can't really market an action movie without having fight scenes. So what can you really put in the trailer, you know? But the choice to do that and the choice to be bold and the choice to have this deep, rich character study is amazing to me.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Let's move on to my number 2 of the year. And my number 2 of the year is a director who really made an impact. And I mean impact. Now, this is why this list is so fascinating, and that's why I love doing this with you, RB3, because I don't necessarily pick my favorites. I'm not picking like, oh, it's my favorites of the year, and here's my top 5. I'm picking the ones that I personally feel had an impact, and that's really what I mean. And as far as impact on 2018, this guy is standing out probably almost more than anyone else when it comes to directors in the award attention category. And that to me is so amazing considering it's his first damn movie. And that is Bradley Cooper's A Star is Born.
Oh, so you're putting Bradley Cooper up there.
100% deserves to be on the most impactful of 2018 directors because everyone has seen A Star is Born. Everyone is talking about A Star is Born. Yeah. He's a unanimous pick for Best Director. And that to me is crazy.
Is he really the unanimous pick? Over Karan?
No, I'm saying nomination.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. As far as like winning, I don't know. But the fact that he's getting nominated, I'd nominate Bo Burnham, Boots Riley, Ryan Coogler over freaking Bradley Cooper, Ari Aster, every other first-time director. I would personally nominate over Bradley. And the fact that he's getting more attention and the fact that he's getting more than any of those directors that made, in my opinion, superior films is just incredible to me because he made a film that truly was for everyone. A movie that can hit that audience of East Coast and West Coast, and it could still hit that audience of like Midwest, South.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I think this movie really had his heart in like Middle America.
That's what I'm saying. Middle America really liked this movie, and Coast America really liked this movie. Yeah. It's that weird blend that Bradley Cooper was able to successfully do, in making a country movie star fall in love with a pop movie star and blending those two worlds. The fact that they meet at a drag competition inside a LGBT bar it's the most... I mean, that's a bold statement within itself that Bradley Cooper's trying to make. But the fact that he's very much in your face with the whole country music angle and the whole country rock star angle is still very much like... I could see how Middle America is like, hell yeah, rock on. I love this movie. And I could see how the coast is still like, hell yeah, I love this movie. He blends those two worlds, man, and he does it pretty well in that sense. Obviously, I don't think it's the best movie of the year, but it's still really successfully done. And the fact that he's getting attention for both acting and directing, I mean, that's crazy, man. I mean, the fact that that's your first film and you're getting award nominations for directing and acting in your first movie, and it's making that much money, and it's on top of all that, RB3. The music associated with this movie is already hitting the freaking not the box office charts, the music charts.
Oh yeah,
that's 100%. Crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy to me that
winning Mad Awards and shit.
Yeah, the fact that he's being able to accomplish a first-time film, a successful first-time film, getting Oscar nominations for it or award attention for it, and getting freaking radio time for the songs that he's playing in this movie. Shallow and the first song he plays in this movie too. Yeah. Like that to me, the fact that Bradley Cooper is on the tip of everyone's tongue when it comes to 2018 and directors, 100% deserves to be on my list. And that's why I put him at number 2.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, that's very compelling. I really do think that he for a director, like I said, for John Krasinski, being in front of camera and behind the camera is tough. Also, playing guitar and singing is tough too. So it's like he was fighting 3 uphill battles. And the fact that this movie was originally supposed to be directed by Clint Eastwood, and then Clint Eastwood casted, I think, Bradley Cooper. And I think it was supposed to be Beyonce as the pop star instead of Lady Gaga. But Clint Eastwood dropped, so Bradley Cooper picked it up himself. And I thought that was always like a little ambitious, especially for a movie that is. This has been a movie that's been remade 4 times, which, or this is the 4th remake of it, which. We could go into a larger conversation about like how MGM is continuing this trend of like remaking their movies, because that's all they've done over the past 10 years, remake every single one of their movies, one of their classic movies at least. But it's just crazy that this one, out of all of these remakes, out of all of the the Creeds that we saw, what's the other MGM movies that they remake? They've been remaking a lot recently, but the Magnificent Seven. But the fact that this one stood out, this one was the one that put it over the top. It's crazy. I mean, it's a show business movie, so obviously Hollywood's gonna love that a little more than they would normally. But it's just crazy that it's fascinating to me that this movie had the cultural impact that it had solely because it's a music movie that's about country music. Like the fact that you're getting people, like you said, the people on the coast to care about this film
because of Gaga.
It's Gaga. I think there's Gaga. It's the
people in Middle America because of Bradley Cooper in the country.
Yeah, and because of American Sniper.
And American Sniper, 100%. Yeah, 100% because American Sniper.
Yeah.
But I'm saying the fact that he's able to do both is kind of remarkable if you think about it.
Yeah, no,
I don't necessarily think that it's Best Picture remarkable, but it's still remarkable nevertheless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, regardless of my thoughts on this movie, I thought the movie was fine. I thought it was a good movie. Yeah. I definitely don't think it's Best Picture movie. I definitely don't think it's Best of the Year. And I definitely don't think Bradley Cooper should even be in this conversation, but he is. He is nonetheless. You know what I'm saying? Like, regardless of what I think and what I say, he is. People love it. People enjoyed it. A massive portion of American audiences related to it because of the 2 connections. He was able to take the craziness of Gaga, and he was able to take the American Sniper country musicness and mesh it together and make this crazy remake of A Star Is Born and make it a successful movie. Yeah, man. I mean, that's a feat right there.
Yeah, nah, it's that's a good pick, a strong pick.
Yeah. Who's your number 2?
My number 2. So for me, we talked about with the Avengers and with Black Panther, movies that are blockbusters that have the director's stamp on it. That you feel the director. Like there, you feel the auteurism, you feel the style. And for me, no other blockbuster really encompassed that better for me than Mission Impossible Fallout this year. So I got to name my man Chris McCrory, the number 2 spot here. That movie is directing the coolest shit in the world. Like the one take when they're falling out of the Halo jump scene.
That's you could just stop there.
Yeah. I mean, come on, man.
He was again one almost.
Yeah.
I was gonna be him or James Wan or him or it was hard between him and the Russos. I had to pick the blockbuster one.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, it's tough because you're right, Christopher McQuarrie, man. Keep going.
Yeah, and I mean, and the fact that he's the first Mission Impossible director to direct 2 in a row goes to show that he kind of took over this franchise. It's his now. And I honestly don't want to see anybody else direct these movies anymore, honestly. Because to me, I mean, I don't know, I think you disagree, but for me, the plane jump sequence alone tops the Dubai sequence and Mission Impossible 4 for me.
That Dubai sequence is never going to be topped. It's the craziest shit I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But it's still crazy. You're right. That jump is insane. You're talking about the Halo jump?
Yeah.
That thing made me feel. I immediately told my brother, I'm like, that's not real. And I was like, yo, that's real?
They filmed it.
What?
Yeah, that was real.
As soon as I found out that was real, I freaked out. I was like, no way, that's real. I thought that was all CG.
No, that's absolute perfection right there.
Yeah.
The way they handled that. The way, I mean, there's a lot of other great action moments in there, of course, too. Him running,
the final battle,
the final battle. Was
him
great.
running, that's enough too, man. Just him running,
and especially through like those iconic
the streets,
streets, and him jumping over the building and breaking his ankle, still picking it up after that too. Like
him on the bike, on the motorcycle.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Him literally getting hit and knocked around.
Yeah.
Perfect, man. I think the action, the fight scenes between
the stash.
With Henry Cavill.
No, you're right. That fight scene in the bathroom is still one of the best fight scenes, man.
Yeah.
So good.
So this is like
homie. I got to give him a shout out. I forget his name. He did the Last Jedi fight scene.
Okay.
He did that, which is sick too, and he's also the stunt double for Oberyn Martell in Game of Thrones.
Oh, really?
So shout out to him. He's a beast.
Wow.
That guy can fight. Is the Asian homie who beat the shit out of Henry Cavill and Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
He beat the shit out of him. I was like, yo, it's gonna be a good fight, or it's gonna be like a beat. No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was a straight up massacre.
Yeah.
He whooped him.
Yeah.
I love that fight scene.
No, I think just overall, like in terms of action, this was the best directed action that we saw this year.
It's tough, man, because this year was definitely the year for action set pieces and action movies. Mission Impossible, Avengers Infinity War, Aquaman, Black Panther, like all these.
Overlord had also a
Overlord was cool.
Jump sequence.
Upgrade had some dope ass action scenes. Did you see Girls in the Spider's Web?
I didn't see that one. No.
Girl in the Spider's Web had some dope action scenes. Like, this was a dope year for action set pieces and action movies, for sure. But you're right, Christopher McCrory 100% deserves to be up there, man, for sure.
Yeah, no,
like you said, that Halo jump alone is like...
Yeah.
That's directing right there.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't Hitchcock, but it was one director. I'm definitely misquoting, but they said a great movie is just a great movie is a good story with 3 great scenes, you know? And that this movie encompasses that, you know? It's everything else in the movie is really good, really tight, really well structured and edited, and really well, you know, paced and everything. But it's the ending, it's the beginning. Halo jump, it's the bathroom fight, and it's the ending stuff with the helicopter. Like all of that is just amazing blockbuster cinema that we don't really see as much. Also, the dream sequence. You know me. I hate dream sequences. But the sequences where Ethan Hunt would imagine what the situation would be like, and it would be visualized in a very like slow motion type of way. It was like super dope to me, man. Super dope.
And it made a ton of money, man.
Ton of money.
Made a ton.
It was
of money.
I think it's number 7 right now, right? Or number 8 of the year.
I am not sure.
I think it might be number 8.
Number 8.
Yeah, number 8. There
just after Aquaman.
That's after Aquaman.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's still like, props to them, man.
Yeah.
Domestically, I'm looking at domestic, so I don't know. Worldwide, it might be better. But yeah, man. Shout out to Christopher McCrory for making a dope action movie for sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of dope action movies, my number 1 is a director that I feel broke. Just again, thinking about everything he's done this year is crazy. And the fact that he's breaking barriers, not just when it comes to box office and making the most money, but he's breaking barriers when it comes to the thing that I didn't think I would see in such a long time, and that I've been complaining about, and that a lot of nerds have been complaining about for years, and that is the respect that superhero movies deserve. And not just respect as far as critical success, but respect as far as award success. And that has never been attained before. And this is the year that gave us a director that was able to accomplish that already with award attention. And he's going to do it again with the Academy Awards, and that is Ryan Coogler. is my #1 director of 2018. The fact that he was able to not only make a successful box office comic book movie, something that a lot of people have done. Sam Raimi, the MCU movies, The Dark Knight, like a lot of people have made comic book movies with a lot of money. But no director has done a comic book movie that not only has gotten critics to be so hyped about it, but gotten Academy snobs to be hype about it. And that to me is just already like the fact that you're able to get these Academy old white snobs to care about a movie is the biggest feat ever. This movie will probably be the first superhero movie ever to be nominated for Best Picture. That to me is like ever, man. I mean, we've had it for years. How many years have we had of these crazy comic book movies? And we never had one that has had award attention. Finally, Ryan Coogler delivered that by giving us a culturally impactful film, like you said, not only in America, because it's it's the biggest domestically now in 2018, but in the world. It has a worldwide impact, billion-dollar movie that has transcended culture when it comes to music, when it comes to identity, when it comes to actors becoming bigger than they are, when it comes to online culture with Killmonger, with Black Panther, with Shuri becoming an icon already, and she's just a small part of this movie. It's just a phenomenal feat. The fact that there's so many people that saw this movie that have never seen an MCU movie before. That right there, just by saying that, should be an accomplishment within itself. The fact that there were so many people who went to see this movie and had never seen an MCU movie before, just because they were so fascinated by what Ryan Coogler was going to deliver. That opening night I went to see this movie, you had a different experience than I did, obviously, because you saw the premiere. I went to the opening night at the ArcLight, where all the theaters were Black Panther, and people got dressed up. I saw a lot of people in African clothes and stuff, and I was like, yo, this is crazy. And people were just, it became a event movie, a true event movie with no other predecessor, right? Infinity War was also an event movie, but they had a lot of predecessors. They had Age of Ultron, Infinity War, they had all these other MCU movies. Black Panther didn't have a predecessor. This was the first Black Panther movie, and it really did deliver something that I can't believe I'm seeing finally. As a nerd, as a super crazy nerd, seeing the award attention being given to a superhero movie, that within itself is the biggest accomplishment of the year by far. Ryan Coogler is just stepping up his game to legendary status already. And the guy is like 2-3 years older than me. It's crazy, man. And the fact that he's like the chillest dude ever. You see him in interviews, he's so chill. I'm like, bro, come on. Just wake up, man. You got to be cockier. But he's not.
You're the best director in the world.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to be cocky, man.
But
again, I would give, and I got crap for saying this on Twitter. I would give him best director over a lot of people right now, as far as like nomination goes.
Right.
I'd give him a nom over Cooper, to be honest. But I still think Cooper had a huge impact this year, but I still feel like Coogler really did something special with the music, the atmosphere. I mean, the music, man. Ludwig Göransson. Shout out to Ludwig. The music, the atmosphere, the costume design, the production design. This movie's gonna sweep some awards, man. It's really gonna take a lot. It's gonna take a lot of awards.
It's definitely gonna do costume design. Or probably production design. Yeah, maybe not VFX.
Maybe not VFX, but maybe score. I mean, score deserves a nomination.
Yeah,
for
score
sure.
definitely deserves a nomination. Probably some sort of regard in like editing too, maybe. Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that's why.
I mean, the album, man. I mean, that album, like I said before, the album deserves the Oscar just for that.
I mean, the album's nominated for Album of the Year, Record of the Year, Song of the Year. Nominated for every category that a movie soundtrack.
Have you noticed recently on the radio? I don't know if you've noticed over this past week and the past 2 weeks, they've been replaying All the Stars all the time. Have you noticed that?
No, I haven't noticed.
They've been playing that a lot more.
Oscar campaign, man.
I was like, why am I hearing this again? And this was like last year's song. It's because
Disney,
they're trying to pump it out. They're like, you remember Black Panther? Oh yeah, I love this song.
Well, see,
that's a great song too.
That's funny because this is a year that we have both A Star Is Born soundtrack being nominated for Record of the Year, The Shallows, and All the Stars being out. Two original movie songs nominated for Record of the Year at the Oscars. That usually never happens.
Yeah, I mean, I still think Spider-Man should be in there too.
Yeah, I probably didn't qualify.
Yeah,
but which one? The Sunflower joint?
Sunflower, any of them.
I like Juice WRLD, the Juice WRLD song in the soundtrack.
Which is that? Hyde.
I think so. Yeah, that's the one towards the end.
Yeah. I love that one.
I just love Juice WRLD's my guy. But yeah, no, definitely. That's why I put him at number 5. I didn't really have like an order to this list.
Sure.
But
I put him at number 1.
You put him as number 1.
There's no way he's not number 1 for me.
But in terms of like the achievements, that's definitely. Man. He had that achievement.
He had the biggest of them all.
He definitely stood out.
And think about it. As far as money and as far as critical success.
Yeah,
I mean, there's bar none. There's no one who can touch him.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, no, and much respects to Coogler, and definitely fight on because USC. Even you talk about him not being cocky. I've heard plenty of stories of like him being like the nicest guy back in film school.
I was gonna say I've heard plenty of stories of him throwing doors at people, throwing chairs.
No chairs. I was
like, RB3, tell us more.
Nah. I hear Coogler.
Yeah, he seems like a nice guy.
So I much respect to him, man.
Yeah,
hope he's cashing in.
If you've seen video of him directing Creed, it's pretty funny because he's a very physical guy. He's very intense. He's an intense dude, but he's like getting in the face of Michael B. Jordan. He's like, "Come on, man, I want you graphic, and I want you," and he's like directing him, but he's like very intense and physical too.
Yeah. He comes from a football background.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, because he's a buff dude.
Yeah.
So he's very much like, I don't want this guy to get on my bad side. Director's being angry and. Right. I wouldn't want this guy to tackle me. But either way, man, for me, he took 2018, 100%.
Yeah.
What's your number 1?
My number 1, again, this is like a non-traditional list or whatever, but you talk about Ryan Coogler busting the glass ceiling for comic book movies, and I've talked a lot about streaming services, and I feel like this director has broken the glass ceiling for Netflix, and I gotta say, Alfonso Cuarón, my guy.
You picked the Mexican, I'll pick the black guy.
Hey, that's what's up. I also picked the black guy before.
That's true.
Number 5.
That's true.
But
I didn't pick the black.
No, also, but
I almost put Cuarón.
But I would. I mean, I gotta say, like, if it was just based on like who I think who directed the best movie this year, I'd say. Barry Jenkins for Bill Street.
Who would you give the Oscar to right now, best director?
If I had to give the Oscar to one person, I give it to Barry Jenkins.
Okay,
I give it to
more
him.
than Cuarón.
More than Cuarón, yeah. Just because I like that movie, I like Bill Street more, and I think it's I like that movie more. But in terms of having a Netflix movie, we talked, obviously like. Amazon had movies with Manchester by the Sea, and I think they had another movie nominated before. But Netflix has always been getting the brunt of the criticism.
And they've been trying for years,
They've been trying. They tried hard with the Idris Elba movie, Beast of No Nation.
Mudbound.
Mudbound.
They've been trying forever.
But I think Roma is finally the one that's going to break that Best Picture glass ceiling and is going to win Best Foreign Language Film probably. Which is another huge accomplishment too. And I think that the way that this movie is wholly Alfonso Cuarón. It's based on his personal experiences. It feels like this is an amateur's movie. It's all of his storytelling. It's very specifically from his perspective, and it's all of the traditions that you'll see in an Alfonso Cuarón. This is what's most impressive to me. It's all the stuff you would see in a normal Alfonso Cuarón movie, the neo-Italian, influence, the French New Wave influence, the free-moving camera, the long takes, but it's restrained and it's pulled back and it's presented in a very whimsical type way that, but it's still very objective and has those like very straight kind of pans and dollies and all that stuff. So it's a switch up of his directorial style to make it more personal. And then the fact that it's being put up on Netflix and the fact that it's really shaking up the industry and the way that he's been responding to a lot of the criticism of that, because I've been saying this forever, man. The media is just gonna hate Netflix. At least the movie media, the varieties, the deadlines, all that. They're always just gonna hate Netflix. They always are because it directly hurts their bottom line. If people aren't, if they don't have or really everybody's going to hate Netflix. Essentially, the movie theaters are going to hate on Netflix. The media is going to hate on Netflix because it doesn't feed their bottom line in that same kind of way. Netflix is a more immediate thing. People don't look to critic reviews to watch Netflix movies. People don't, people aren't going to Variety or whatever, or whatever these sites are to buy tickets through their things, or they can't, they think, so streaming thing is going to hurt their bottom line because Netflix doesn't put really any money into the promotion of their stuff, so they're getting less ad money if big Netflix movies end up becoming bigger and bigger. So, of course, they're going to ask them biased questions like they asked him when he won the Golden Globe.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, why'd you – how do you remember the exact question that they asked him? But he said, like, listen, if this is a movie starring non-professional Mexican actors with a medium-sized budget, a fair budget, and the whole world can see it, what more do you want? Like, this is, if that's not pure cinema, if that's not pure access to cinema, if that's not a director having the whole of his vision without any interference from, the studio and stuff like that, and is getting put out there and is getting award attention and is blowing people's minds, to me, that is a huge feat and accomplishment.
100%, man. I agree with everything you said, even though I don't agree with everything you said as far as Netflix goes. I just feel there's some issues there. But as far as what Alfonso Cuarón accomplished this year with Netflix, you're right. This is finally what Netflix has been looking for like 6 years. I don't know how long they've been trying, but they've been trying for years to get the respect as far as award attention, to get the respect as far as a production company and a platform and a streaming service and everything within itself, because Netflix is all within house. This is the movie that they've been looking for. Yeah. Finally, they found it. This is what is going to give him an Oscar Best Picture nomination. It's going to probably get him a win for Best Director. And doing that from a Netflix movie, something that people laughed at 5 years ago, is a feat within itself. You're right. Once again, he almost made my list just for that reason alone. The whole conversation within Netflix is very interesting for me. Obviously, I've been critical of a little bit of it just because I feel like Netflix is great at giving directors the vision they want, at giving the directors the money that they need and the vision that they want. Netflix is perfect at that. I can't argue against that. The one thing I can argue is what I've been saying for years, is that the problem with that is that Netflix is giving all this money towards production budget, and then when it comes to the promotion of their movie, they really play favorites, and they really do bury the shit out of movies. Hashtag Hold the Dark. Have you seen Hold the Dark?
No.
Exactly. Have you heard of Hold the Dark?
I haven't heard of it. No.
That's what, exactly.
Who did that one?
This is a movie by the director of Green Room and the director of, I forget the other movie he did, but he was like, it was a pretty decently sized budget movie starring Alexander Skarsgård. And it's a dark thriller movie that Netflix just buried. No promotions, no nothing, no ads, like 1 or 2 ads. And it was not on the front page of Netflix. It wasn't even on the second page of Netflix. It wasn't even on the categories of Netflix. I literally had to type it in to watch this movie. And that's the problem with Netflix, is that they made the movie, what's his face, the director of this movie, Hold the Dark, made the movie he wanted to make 100%. They gave him all the money he wanted, 100%, but no one saw the movie. No one saw it because Netflix buried it. Because Netflix is a catalog of so many options that if the option that you want to see isn't there, you're not going to see the movie. And that's the issue I have with Netflix, because I really feel like they take chances with directors, and then they're like, we'll give it a 30-second spot, and that's it. We'll spend like $2 on it, because we already spent like $50 million on the movie or $40 million on the movie production budget. And then they're like, we'll bury it. And now it's buried, and no one ever saw this movie, RB3. No one saw it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be something
like not even scrolling through Netflix you could find that to me is like a big issue, because it's and they've done that a lot. They did that with the Jessica Williams movie that I saw and that no one saw. I don't know if you know who she is.
I don't know who that is.
She's from The Daily Show. She did a movie last year, I think, and it was a great Netflix movie. No one saw it because it wasn't there, because it got buried.
Well, see, here's the thing. I think that particularly with Netflix, like I don't really know what's buried or what's not buried, because their algorithms are so like all over the place.
Sure, but when there's a new Netflix show, you hear about it.
Well, but no, there's
as far as like,
there's a show with
if
the
I
guy
go
from
on
Harry
Netflix,
Potter.
sure, but if I go on Netflix.com, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying not necessarily like on the subway.
But no, this is what I'm saying. Like the Netflix website is catered towards algorithms, right?
Sure.
So like, for example, if somebody watches a specific type of genre, if somebody watches a lot of comedies are going to show up on their Netflix.
Yeah, but I watch a lot of thrillers, and
but that's what I'm saying. Like, but
they
there's
show
also,
up for me.
I see. That's why I don't know what their algorithm is. But then I could. But so that's why I can't say like if. Like I definitely think I've watched things on Netflix that I think that nobody else has watched.
Sure.
But that's because I know for a fact that the algorithm knows that I like political movies and the algorithm knows that I like comedy. So it'll push me towards some sort of weird political comedy that nobody's heard of. And I'll be like, hey, have you heard of this movie? Oh, no, you haven't. What the fuck? Like, but I think that's just part of the algorithm shit. So I personally can't defend or say if like, oh, I don't know if they're like burying.
I just feel like when it comes to Netflix produced movies, new releases, there should be more of a push, and they don't do that.
Well, see,
they only do it for movies like Roma.
Well, no, they did it. They did it big for the Ballad of Buster Scruggs too. The Coen Brothers. But then also,
it's another one. But when it comes to like no-name indie movies, that a lot of people are like, Netflix is saving them. Are they? Are they saving them? Because when it comes to like, if you buy up a tiny indie movie and then you throw it away in your back catalog, is that saving it? That's my issue. It's just that I feel like a lot of people are like, no one would have seen this movie if it wasn't for Netflix. I'm like, did anyone even see it on Netflix?
Well, see, but we don't know. They don't release the numbers, so like we have no idea. Probably it could have been one of their biggest movies for all we know, but we just don't know because we don't have access to the numbers.
That's true, but I know for sure that it was.
But then I'm sure if you were to speak to like somebody from Netflix, or if you were to question them as to like why doesn't this movie show up on this, they'll probably give you some explanation along the lines of like, because I wonder the same thing about YouTube. YouTube is a more recent thing that is having an algorithm problem, right? Like for me, YouTube only pushes me in a very specific direction because I like hip hop music, I like movies, and I like politics. Yeah. So only 3 things that show up in my recommended thing
100%, me
are
too.
those related topics. Netflix, I've noticed recently, has been doing this thing, for me at least, like, is definitely pushing me towards, they know I like critically acclaimed movies, and I know I like political movies. So that's all I see on my feed. When I'm trying to find something funny, I just can't find it.
I
but when I
agree
go on
with
my
you.
boy K's Netflix, all he watches is stand-up comedy, so all that show up on his is fucking stand-up.
100% agree with you. Here's my counter to that. My counter to that is Hold It Dark. I looked for this movie when it came out, when it premiered on Netflix. Usually Netflix is pretty good with their premieres, whether it be Altered Carbon, whether it be Roma, whether it be New House of Cards season premiere, whether it be The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. When it comes to like Friday night on a Netflix, because Friday is usually when they release their content. This is the movie I looked for, and I couldn't find it. And I was like, the movie just came out, bro. What is your deal, Netflix? Like, I should be able to find this movie within 3 clicks. And it took me like 10 clicks. It took me typing out the entire title of the movie to be able to find this movie. And I was like, it just came out. Why are you burying this? Like, it really felt like a clear diss towards this movie where Netflix is saying, yes, we are going to work with the director and we're going to give him everything the director wants. However, when it comes to promoting that movie, we'll try our best. Like, that to me feels like, come on, man, you got to try a little harder than that, because I feel like there might be some gems on Netflix that a lot of people don't see, and I feel like that's an issue. And obviously the whole theatrical release is another conversation that we can have, because I personally feel like, again, I saw Roma in theaters. I can't imagine seeing a movie like that at home, and a lot of people are, may call me a purist or an idiot, and that's fine. I agree. I probably am. But at the same time, it's something that I personally feel where it's like, it's difficult for me to say I'm going to watch a Netflix movie at home and be 100% there. Like I said to you last year when we had our Netflix conversation, our Netflix fight, whatever. I told you, I was like, what if Get Out came out on Netflix? It wouldn't have been the revelation that it was. I would still agree with that. I still don't think that Get Out would have had the impact that it had. I just don't think so. Part of the power of Get Out was the theatrical reaction, the theatrical experience of seeing this movie with your friends and being connected. I think,
dude, 100%. I think I agree with.
I would have been like, that was cute. That was a fun movie. But in theaters, I was like, yo, this is the shit.
No.
Let's go, Chris.
I agree with the
theatrical
thing. I agree with the theatrical thing. Yeah. But I think the reaction this movie would have had if it was on Netflix. The Netflix is built for social media, and that's why movies like Bird Box just take the fuck off.
Don't get me started on Bird Box. But I thought Bird Box was whack.
It was whack, but it was whack. But if you think a movie like Get Out, if that would have got on Netflix, you think Black Twitter wouldn't have got a hold of that and made that the biggest movie ever?
Maybe, but I just don't feel like. You're right. It would have been hot on Twitter for a good 2 weeks, but it wouldn't have gotten award attention.
Okay, sure, but that's why I applaud
Cuarón because he's finally doing it. That's true.
But see, also too, like there are entire, to me the whole bearing or non-bearing, a theatrical, non-theatrical thing, kind of. For me, I have a hard time looking at that too, because I think of what's the one movie they have the super popular like romantic movie, To All the Boys or some shit.
To All the Boys I Loved Before.
Yeah. Apparently that's their biggest movie ever, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I think of the year, I think.
Not once have I seen that pop up in my thing. Not once.
Yeah.
Not one time. I literally had to. I tried searching for it.
Have you seen the movie?
I haven't seen it, no. But nor do I care to, because it's not my kind of movie.
It's not good.
But like I say, I think that they cater to whatever audience or algorithm works for them, and then explode and blow it up more and more through that means in ways.
I feel like there's certain movies like To All the Boys I Loved Before and all the other crappy teenage rom-coms that they put out on Netflix. Sorry, Netflix. You put out a lot of crappy teenage rom-coms. You just do. That's fact. But compare that to like something like a Roma. It's difficult for me to swallow my pride of not watching that in theaters. I don't know why. It just is. I'm curious. Yeah. And I was going to tweet this out, and I never did, just because I don't want to insult people who love Netflix. But I'm curious. This isn't an insult towards anyone who says yes to this question. Just because I personally feel like, and I've had a lot of debates with movie fans like me, movie purists, about this conversation. But how many times, if ever, like not even once, how many times ever did you look at your phone during Roma?
I mean, I didn't.
You didn't?
No, I didn't. No. But
I'm curious if people answered honestly to that question. I'm curious how many times. With a movie as slow and as deliberate and as pure cinema, fly on the wall type of movie that Roma is, how many people looked at their phones? I mean, I can't lie. I probably would have done it I did it to All the Boys I Loved Before like 5 times, and then that was just me being. And I'm a kind of guy who doesn't do that. Yeah. But at the same time, for me, just the theatrical experience is never going to be the same as just like, okay, yeah, sure. Oh, that person died? Cool. Okay. How much time is left in this movie? Like, You see what I'm saying? Like, even movies like Bird Box, like, how many times did you check Twitter on Bird Box? I did probably like twice. You see what I'm saying? Like, Netflix is never going to take away that stigma. It's never going to do it.
Yeah,
and it's unfortunate, but that's
TV,
the case.
But that's TV in general. I mean, that's the criticism towards.
But that's
like
why
TV
watching
too.
it at home is different than watching it in theaters. I personally feel.
Yeah. I don't think Netflix is going to kill theaters, though. Like,
I don't think it's going to kill theaters, but I feel like the theatrical experience is so different from movies like Roma, like If Beale Street Could Talk, these slow indie movies that not like movies like Bright or like To All the Boys I Loved Before, which is a rom-com. Those movies are fine. Like, you can watch that at home and it's fine. But movies like Roma, movies like If Beale Street Could Talk, stuff like that, where it's like, oh, the only way I'm going to get something out of this movie is watching it in a theater, personally. That's just my personal.
Well, hey man, let's hope Netflix gets the learning curve up and get that. But I don't know. I'm still the reigning defender of Netflix.
Yeah,
and you could go back every episode we ever talked about Netflix.
That's right.
I'm always gonna have the same position. And I think that overall, the fact that Roma is being this like new prestige thing that the Academy is falling over, hopefully that continues a trend of them understanding that more people want to see Best Picture nominees. More people want to have access to these movies because a lot of people now a lot of people could just hop on Netflix and see Roma if it's nominated for Best Picture, and that of course is going to buoy it up more. That's going to bring it more attention to it. So hopefully, if the Academy and all these award shows start recognizing the streaming movies more, then we'll see more attention going to these films and getting boasted up as well. So.
Yeah, and Cuarón did something this year that a lot of people didn't even think would be possible to do, and that's get a Netflix movie probably nominated for Best Picture, and he'll probably win for Best Director. Rightfully so, to be honest, man. I mean, again, the only other person I would give it to would probably be someone like a Barry Jenkins.
Yeah.
Everyone else, to me, as far as director-wise, those are the ones to beat. Barry Jenkins and Cuarón. And the fact that he did that off a Netflix movie, a black and white Spanish Netflix movie, that's a pretty remarkable feat.
Yeah,
So,
give Spike a nomination too. I say give Spike a nomination.
100%. I put Black Klansman at my number 2, so 100% deserves a nomination.
Yeah.
Either way, guys, that is our top 5 directors of 2018. Let us know who are your top 5 directors of 2018. Who do you think had the big impact year of directors? Let us know in the comments down below. And once again, subscribe to First Cut, man. If you haven't done so already, please give us that subscription. And if you're listening to us on the Collider Factory podcast feed, go to our YouTube channel, First Cut, and give us a follow.
First Cut, and also our SoundCloud.
Our SoundCloud.
SoundCloud, the meaning of, just at the meaning of.
Do it up.
It's on SoundCloud.
Either way, for the Meaning of podcast, guys, I am Ace.
It's RB3.
And we are peacing out. Peace out, guys.
Oh, shit. My bad.